grateful you made it here today. I think the things that I want to do today are first, I did change some things, and I got so fed up with. Oh, I noticed just appeared. We are recording the meeting, so make sure you don't use any bad swears.
Okay.
Not bad.
Those for after.
Yeah, nice swears are okay, but it's been really aggravating because I tried resetting. I was able to reset some of the due dates, and then the others were not resetting properly.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on. I just want everybody to just do the best that they can. And I am going to go through and review like some of the cut foam pieces for um, paper mache. Uh, I do have a concern because some people just turned in everything at once, and I bet when they turned in the cut foam piece, I was able to talk about that, and then people were able to fix that. For the people that didn't, if there are issues, you can still sand through the paper mache and recover it. But I try really hard every week to get everything that's been turned in graded so everybody knows where they are. Um, and people can redo stuff right up to the bitter end of the course. Not bitter end, but into to the end of the course.
Right.
There we go. And if anybody hears crying dogs in the background, most of that has been toned down. At one point last week, I was having to put one of the dogs in a kennel and hide her in the back bedroom at the far end of the house, and still some of her whining came through. And she never does that, so I don't know what the issue is. And today here in St. George, it got up to a bluster, a pleasant 122 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
Oh. Tuesday, I had to go to Las Vegas to pick up some glass and to do some other things. I was picking up some canvases to bring back, and it was 122 degrees everywhere.
That's terrible. It's 101 here. I can't imagine, and I already think that's too hot, so I can't imagine 120.
But I remember I grew up in Southeast Washington, which is the north end of the same Utah desert, and summers right around this time every summer we would get 100 to 112 degrees. I remember we had a world record because a guy had survived a sustained, I think his fever was over, it was one of the highest sustained fevers recorded that somebody survived from. And it was a homeless gentleman in the middle of the heat. He got heat stroke. He was hospitalized. He was in a coma. They did all these ice baths and everything, and it was something like he survived like 109-degree fever for a significant amount of time, or something like that. But it was amazing. Then at the end, they showed him getting ready to leave the hospital, and his hair was all standing straight up, which is how he loved to comb it. But that was the first summer when I was 11 years old was the first time I'd ever seen somebody fry an egg on a slide.
I couldn't do it. I already think 90's too hot and 100's too hot, so
I'm just really grateful that God invented air conditioning. Regardless of where your faith is at, or I think we can all agree that the universe was really smart when they came up with that.
yep.
Anyway, did you have a good 4th of July week?
Yeah. I've got 2 kids with July birthdays, so birthday season for us.
That can be really fun, but it can really be stressful as a parent too.
Yeah. But luckily everybody had a good time for the 4th, and so we'll just get through the birthdays and hope we survive it.
Good. Oh, and we did get a couple, we got several PowerPoints, and I wanted to share a couple of them. And I also wanted to show off, hi, Sylvia. I also wanted to show off, somebody did turn in a peer review and a peer critique and a self critique, and I wanted to show those off and then have everybody talk about them. So we want to watch some videos, want to look at some stuff that people turned in, and we'll do that. And then if you guys have questions, hit me up with the questions, and we'll. And I wanted to show some of the conceptual stuff that people were doing too. And I think next week I want to go through and show more of that and talk about it more, because more stuff will be turned in. But right now I just want to kind of show what people are doing a little bit. And then Sylvia, did you have a good 4th of July week, holiday week?
Yeah, it was fun.
All right, and you still have all your fingers?
Yeah. Yeah, we just played with the little snappers that you throw on the ground.
Those can be a lot of fun. I think I may have mentioned about 17, 18, 20 times that I grew up with pretty much brothers. At one point, I had 3 biological brothers, 3 Navajo brothers, and a Shoshone sister. So the women were outnumbered quite a bit in my house. And my mom was a licensed pyrotechnician. She was the only female in Benton County with a pyrotechnician's license, which meant that she was licensed to work with dynamite and solid fuel rocket engines. So yeah, it's 4th of July at our house looked a little different than with normal people. All right. Oh, and did you know, just as a complete aside that had nothing to do with anything else, Indigenous people in this country, ironically, were not did not have the legal right to vote until over 10 years after women did.
I didn't know that.
That's I just think that that's really wild. Anyway, okay. Let's see. I'm going to do a screen share. Actually, before we do this, would you guys like to look at the critiques first, or do you want to look at the conceptual art first? My inclination is I'd like to watch the critiques. They're kind of short, and we'll talk about them. There's only 2 of them to show. Is that okay? All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let me do the screen share here. I want to make sure that we are recording. Okay. Because I've done this before where we've gone an hour and 15 minutes into an hour and a half class, and then I realized that I didn't hit the right button. Okay, this is the playlist for the peer and self-critiques, and we have 1 peer critique and 1 self-critique. These are the ones that are uploaded. There's been others that are turned in, but last week I mentioned to Whitley that I've been having some technical issues with Teams. I've been trying to work on it all day today. I was working on it last week. I thought it was a computer issue, but it's actually a Teams functionality issue. And so hopefully tomorrow I'll get that squared away so that the rest of the semester will be smooth. But it's been just slightly frustrating, and my computer was really, really, really slow. Okay. So one thing I want you to notice is that these critiques are both right around 3 minutes long. And 3 to 5 minutes, I think 3 minutes is the minimum, and 5 minutes is almost too long. And all you need to do for these things is to what is going on? Sorry. All you need to do with these critiques is go through those 4 steps, or the 4 tools of artistic critique, and talk about it out loud. I've had people in this class with severe social anxiety who wrote everything out, and that really helped them. And others who even had it worse, they wrote everything out and had their dad or their boyfriend read it out, which worked out really good. And one gentleman had his mother read it out, and that worked out really well too. It is kind of funny to me a little bit when, you know, I know the person who did the critique, you know, and she's 19-year-old and kind of petite, and then her dad, who's a biker, reads her script and says, "Hi, my name's Sylvia, and I'm doing a critique on my little fluffy bunny." It sounds really funny, but that doesn't matter. The important thing is the critique. The 4 tools are describe, analyze, interpret, and evaluate. And as we go through this, I want you to, we'll talk later, I want you to talk about how well they addressed each of those in these 2 critiques. And it's the easiest way to do this is to just print out that critique page that everybody has and just go look at the artwork and answer the questions that are under each of the 4 tools. So we're going to go ahead and start this. And then after we look at this, we're going to talk about it.
My name is Maggie Rodriguez, and I will be critiquing this untitled piece by Maggie Rodriguez. This piece consists of 2 cubes photographed next to each other on a wood floor with a wooden backdrop from 2 different angles. From the size of the floor panels, the cubes each appear to be 4 inches across. The cube on the left depicts different color harmonies on each face of the cube, while the cube on the right is covered with different textures made from yarn and fur and sponges and sequins, all in black. The colors on the left cube are all pastel and appear to be analogous, triadic, and split complementary in their color harmonies. These colors are all represented through cut colored paper and photographic images. Judging from the visible edges of the paper on the color cube, the color collages appear to have been created separately and then glued onto an existing cube. There are visible edges of corrugated cardboard on the texture cube, which seems to indicate that the texture panels were all created and then glued together into a cube afterward. One side of the texture cube appears to be made from pom-poms made out of fuzzy black yarn, while 2 different types of black yarn have been knitted in 2 different patterns on 2 of the other faces of the cube, one with loops combined with regular knitting in a smoother yarn, and one with baubles combined with regular knitting in a fuzzy yarn. One face appears to be made from layers of shiny black sequins that have been glued together in a mass on the face of the cube, which appears to have been painted black first. Another face of the texture cube appears to have been made from a scouring sponge painted black, cut and layered over a shiny substance on the surface of the cube. The final face of the cube appears to be made of a conventional sponge painted black and juxtaposed with black fur. These cubes seem to be studies and celebrations of color and texture, respectively. The color cube includes images of roses interspersed with geometric shapes that contrast the softness of the flowers. The texture cube appears to have an organic inspiration. The face with the scouring sponge looks like a topographical map with different elevations surrounding a river or body of water. The fur and yarn fibers could simultaneously represent animal, plant, or mineral forms. The visual and actual textures of the black cube successfully evoke a desire to reach out and touch the piece. The variety of images and paper shapes used on the color cube spark curiosity and invite the viewer to take a closer look at the images used and see how the colors relate to the solid colored papers on the same vase. My name?
Okay, let's talk about this video now. A couple things that I want to talk about is what you think about the presentation, what you think about the organization, and how well Margaret did critiquing their own piece. First off, did you notice Margaret's use of each of the 4 tools?
Yeah, I think she did really good at kind of like, even though that was hers, like she did a good job of distancing herself from it being her, like it was her piece, but she did a good job like distancing herself as she described it.
Yeah, and that can be really, really difficult because we are trained to be self-deprecating and to believe that we're flawed enough that when other people can't see it, we need to point out our inadequacies. And what I really appreciate is that Margaret was able to, as you said, distance herself enough from this that she was able to describe it, analyze, go through those steps without feeling a need to self-deprecate, laugh about her work, denigrate it, or say anything negative about it, which I really appreciated. You guys work hard. You don't need to be burdened with that as well. Sylvia, what did you think about her going through each of the 4 tools?
I thought she did a really good job with like pretty much stating the facts about the different like the piece in the 2 different cubes. It was like with how anybody would assume like the word critique would be a bad thing. It wasn't a bad thing at all. It was very well done, very detailed and very factual. It was really impressive because since she was the artist of the piece, um, I know with different pieces you can get like you can know all the struggles that you went through, but to distance and just state the facts the way that she did was very well done.
I agree. I agree a lot. It was impressive to me how precise she was, and the precision. It wasn't. It can be easy to be precise when you're the one who made it, but her precision. She was describing what she was seeing in the photographs as opposed to personal reflection of the process, which I really yeah I was impressed with that kind of precision. One thing I noticed too is when Margaret got to the interpret part, it was interesting because rather than sharing with us just outright why she made the choices she did, she talked about it from the perspective of, this was the assignment and this is what the artist did to fulfill the assignment. So which I really appreciated because she was demonstrating a familiarity with what was observed as opposed to assuming information that only she had as the artist. So I thought that was really good touch as well. So I think this was exceptionally well done as a self critique or as a critique period. The individual stepped away from the piece and answered the questions for each of the 4 tools, or answered questions on each of the 4 tools. One thing I noticed that I really was grateful for is that even though it is not a bad thing to say, for the description tool, or I'm going to be analyzing this now, that's not a bad thing. What Margaret chose to do is move from one tool to the other with using the language of her interacting with the piece rather than saying, now I'm describing it, now I'm analyzing it. And I thought that was really well done, because you could do it either way. But after describing it, then she started talking about how, from the evidence that you could see, perhaps how the pieces were made. And then after that, she moved on to perhaps the meaning behind the pieces, what the intent was by the artist. And then after that, she moved on to evaluating without stating that she was evaluating. So I thought narratively it was really smooth. All right, now let's go to the next one. This is Margaret's peer critique. And after we watch that, we're just going to do the same kind of breakdown again, or assessment.
My name is Maggie Rodriguez, and I will be critiquing this untitled piece by Natalie Rowley. The photograph depicts a yellow and blue church building in the middle of a field with its doors open. The structure is small, approximately 6 inches in its largest dimension. A blue cross adorns the front of the building, which extends into a bell tower with a white jingle bell visible within. Another view of the artwork displays stained glass windows on the side of the building. The structure appears to be made of cut and folded cardstock and textured paper in their original colors of yellow and blue, while the stained glass appears to be made from sheets of acetate or mylar that have been colored with markers. Along with the texture inherent to the paper, additional texture has been achieved by cutting out small, irregular shapes of the paper and pasting them to the surface of the building to represent stonework, and flaps of cardstock have been cut with notches to represent shingles. The use of scale in this piece and the bright colors create a sense of whimsy. The symbol of the cross on the front of the building and the bell imply that this is a church of the Christian tradition. The translucence of the stained glass windows and the open doors spark curiosity, almost as if we could peek through to see tiny worshipers inside. By placing and photographing the structure in an open field with blades of grass and other plants and a mountain range all visible in the photograph, the small scale of the building is emphasized. This gives it the feeling of being a humble countryside house of worship, diminutive in comparison to the grandeur of mountains and sky, reflecting the relative smallness of the people who worship an all-powerful God. It brings to mind the E. E. Cummings poem, I Am a Little Church, No Great Cathedral. In particular, the last 2 stanzas, which say, I am a little church, far from the frantic world with its rapture and anguish, at peace with nature. I do not worry if longer nights grow longest. I am not sorry when silence becomes singing. Winter by spring, I lift my diminutive spire to merciful Him whose only now is forever, standing erect in the deathless truth of His presence, welcoming humbly His light and proudly His darkness. This piece is well crafted with great attention to detail. A lovely work of art in itself, the thoughtful treatment of the finished piece through the staging and photography add to the piece's success, evoking reflections on humankind's relationship with nature and with the divine.
Let's see. Oh. What do you guys think about that one?
I think she did a really good job describing the piece and then putting like her own feelings into it without it coming across as opinion. Like she still was critiquing it, but still tying it to herself in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, she wasn't using it as a platform to express something that was not in the piece. Yeah, yeah, I think so. How about you, Sylvia? What did you appreciate about it?
I really liked that after the description, she related it to like a poem quote thing. Um, that that's what it reminded her of, and so I thought that was really cool to see that it was something that you could do as well.
I really appreciate that too. And the way that she did it was she wasn't saying this is what it means. She's saying, you know, I'm I find this, you know, there's this personal connection, and I can see the similarity with this. And what she said, it again, it appeared to tie in directly with what we were seeing as the art piece as well. And that can be a potentially difficult area to navigate. But I agree, Sylvia, she did a really nice job doing that. Because again, like what Whitley was saying, she wasn't slapping something onto it that didn't belong, but she was making it very personal. And I thought that balance that uh, Margaret found worked out really well. Yeah, I thought that was really nicely done. So for people doing this, please know that it is you will still be getting um, special, or I'm sorry, extra credit. I'm sorry, I'm losing my articulation just a little bit because I was trying to resolve another issue while I was talking to you guys. But I so please, everybody who possibly can, get this done over the next 2 weeks, and then after that, the extra credit will disappear. But I think that having these two as the first examples are really terrific. This is great. Enough work has been uploaded to the discussions and everything that everybody should have ample material to draw from. Now, last week, I believe we looked at Andy Goldsworthy for the PowerPoints. And I know that both of Whitley and Sylvia, both of you guys are doing the service learning material. But I wanted to show the PowerPoints so that people can, other people who are doing the research can see what that looks like. I think with there are specific guidelines and specific elements to turn in as you do the service learning, but there has to be a huge amount of flexibility in that, because as both of you are finding, there are things that you have to deal with, like just the fact that a lot of people you contact are just not going to get back to you. And I'm really impressed that both of you have been able to do so much so quickly in regards to the service learning. A couple of years ago, one of the students who was doing service learning, during the 4-month period, he would be working with somebody. He would be designing the project after finding out what they needed, working with them, coordinating them. And after 2.5, 3 weeks of this, the person would stop returning his emails or his phone calls. And he'd do it again, and he'd do it again. And on the fifth iteration, it was the last month of the school year or the school term, he was panicking. He said, "Can I just stop all this and do the research now?" And he'd already put in so much work on all these failed projects, because people were not taking advantage of a highly skilled artist who wanted to help. And I said, well, just try one more time, see if you can get it to work, and if not, do whatever you need to. And he ended up there was a gentleman in his neighborhood who was recovering from a significant amount of life traumas and personal issues. And this guy in the class was able to coordinate a neighborhood service project, got several other people involved, and he actually designed and oversaw the building of a sculptural chicken coop in this neighborhood, where people came in, the volunteers cleaned the backyard, and then he coordinated people to build the sculptural chicken coop. And it's not at all like what either of you guys are doing, but it really demonstrates the kind of resourceful creativity that all the service learning people are doing. And so it's always fun to see the kinds of things you guys come up with, which I know I love when you have a unique skill set and you're able to use it and other people are able to take advantage of it. And instead of doing what you think they need, you find out exactly what is needed. And it ends up impacting lives for quite a while. So I think that's wonderful. But I wanted to watch like one or two of these PowerPoints just so everybody can see what they're like. And I do have this link is active to this playlist. It is active in the assignment page for the PowerPoints, and in a couple other places too. Let's see. And one thing I want you to look at is notice the times. This is 6.5 minutes. This is a little bit over 5 minutes. 6.25, 5.5, 8.5, almost 7. One thing you'll notice is that people have really tried hard to keep to that under 10 minutes, 5 to 7 minute kind of window, and which is very impressive. We had a couple questions I went through. I realized that I had not properly edited the assignment description. Because it still refers to 8 sources for the annotated bibliography when you only needed 5. So I did take care of that. But I wanted to watch a couple of these with you just so you get a sense of how people were doing this. And using the word you, I am referencing everybody doing the research portion of this class, or the research route, outside of the 3 of us here today. So I'm going to go ahead and start this.
Alrighty.
And I wanted to point out too is that PowerPoint does have a feature where you can record everything as a video, and sometimes people have a difficult time with that. Sometimes it's a little bit easier. There are several different ways to record this. I've had people put a mini tripod with their phone and record a video with them talking, going through the slides. This individual set up a Teams meeting and recorded the Teams meeting, with the slides being on the screen share, which I thought was just amazing.
So, my name is Katie Eck, and I'm doing my presentation on Christian Boltanski. And let's see. So, Christian Boltanski was a French multimedia artist. His background is very diverse, and so I thought I'd go into that a little bit because his father was a Jewish man who moved from Russia to France, and his mother was a Jewish woman from Corsica, which is an island in France, in the Mediterranean. And so his father had some pretty traumatic experiences during the Holocaust, where he has like very vivid memories, horrific memories of hiding from the Nazis under floorboards for a year and a half. And so Boltanski, he was both haunted and inspired by these secondhand memories and became entranced in exploring life and death in his artwork. The artwork that you see behind him in this picture is called Storage Memory. This is just one piece of it, but what you're seeing is a 10-ton pile of clothes representing people who have passed away, not necessarily from the Holocaust, but just in general. Let's see, so he has a deep interest in the fleeting quality of life. He often used photos from newspapers and yearbooks to create work. And so in a way, he was saying without words that these people were worthy of remembrance and memorialized them through his artwork. He often had an interesting goal in mind while making artwork, and that was to delay his audience's mental connection that his work was meant to be art. So like the longer he could delay it, the better, because he truly wanted to get the point across that there is beauty in regular everyday life and people. This piece here on the screen is called Hôtel de Lycée Chassis. I'm not sure how to say it. It's French, but it's basically is like high school students in the yearbook, I think. And this piece is kind of mimicking medieval altarpieces, but the lamps are obscuring many of the faces, and so they're kind of like hiding some identities and creating like a disconnect there, which kind of reflects the disconnect of the living from people who have passed away. Okay, so although Boltanski's work can feel emotionally heavy, it also often carries playful elements. This piece is called Théâtre d'Ombre, and it's one that children often love. This piece is one that actually first caught my eye when I was doing initial artist research. The figures are really small. He said that he could like carry them in his pocket, and he just wanted like a very portable art piece. And so he came up with this. So the figures are hung and like hence sway around in the air, which gives them a very lively feel despite being skeletal in appearance. And this follows the theme that always runs through his work, that life is fleeting but can be remembered. So if you think about it, even those that are gone can live on our memory. And in my opinion, this piece does a fabulous job of representing the liminal space that exists in our mind between life and death. Okay, so although Boltanski enjoyed memorializing large quantities of people, like we often see in his pieces that have lots of yearbook pictures and newspaper pictures and that giant pile of clothes, he really wanted to make it clear that individual lives are very consequential. They really mattered. So in this piece called Animadas, he organized these bells on poles into a star pattern that was present on the day that he was born. And on the surface, it might seem like this was the kind of a prideful piece, but the core meaning of it is just showing that individual lives matter. And so he expressed that the bells carry this really sweet spirit and that they make the music of souls. And so he really wanted his work to connect the living to individuals who had passed on. And let's see, so Boltanski, he kind of moved away from like physical artwork at some point in his career, and he furthered his work in memorializing individuals by compiling different audio projects, actually. He has recorded voices, personal archives, and heartbeats. And so what you're seeing on screen now is one of his projects called Archives du Coeur. And it has 3 rooms. One of them is called the Heart Room, which has an installation. There's the listening room, where you listen to the heartbeats of all the strangers that have recorded their heartbeats, and the recording room, which is what you're seeing on screen. This woman is recording her heartbeat for others to listen to. Beautiful. All right. Thanks so much for your time. Here are the references that I used, and you have a great rest of your day.
All right, what did you guys think about that PowerPoint?
I thought it
What
was well organized,
well organized?
and
Okay,
I
good.
liked all the different examples of the art that were shown.
I think one of the dangers of doing this kind of research is a lot of people think that they need to do a biography, and it's not a biography. You're talking about the artist's work. And what I thought about this one that was really good, that like what you said about organization, is that it was organized in such a way so that we learned just enough about Christian Boltanski's background and where he's at, so we can really appreciate where he's coming from. You know, we didn't hear where he went to high school. We didn't hear about what classes he took in college or anything. We learned that his parents, where they came from in the world, and his he had a lot of access to memories of the Holocaust, and I thought that was excellent because you can really see how that impacts the kind of choices he made in the direction he went with his art. You know, and the individual doing that kept going back to this idea that for Boltanski, every life is important, and I thought that was really nicely done. And again, Sylvia, I concur. It was really nicely organized. How about you, Whitley? What was something that you liked about it?
I liked that she picked somebody that interested her because you could tell, like, in her voice when she was talking about the artist, that she was intrigued by him. And so that passion came across. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, I have to do this about this artist that I don't like. Like, she was intrigued by his art and she wanted to talk about what she found intriguing.
Yeah, very, very much so. And like you said, you could really tell that this was stuff that was interesting to her. And it would not surprise me at all if her own future work reflected some of what she learned by encountering this artist. So yeah, I thought that was another really good thing. Now I want to pick another artist. We have several to choose from. Let's see. And I know I want to do one more of these, but we might be able to do two more. I think I let's see. Yeah, I think I want to do one more, and then we'll look at some of the conceptual art stuff, and then next week we'll look at some more and some more conceptual art. And if you guys really are excited about these, then we'll watch a third one as well. Now this one, gonna do the handy dandy screen share again. Okay, this is Colley's PowerPoint presentation on an artist named Anna Mendieta, who's one of my favorites. Well, actually, I should tell you that all the artists on that list that I put together are my favorites. So it doesn't really narrow it down. But some of them are quite a bit more challenging to approach than others. And one thing I liked about Boltanski is that he is not the stereotypical 3D artist that you'd expect us to look at, and neither is Anna Mendieta. So hopefully you'll enjoy this as well.
My presentation is on Anna Mendieta, performance, earthwork, and sculpture artist. I do want to give a content warning before I begin for graphic themes and talk of and images of blood and slight nudity. Mendieta is bold and vulnerable artist.
I'm glad she said that. Do you guys, are you comfortable with continuing, or would you like me to pick up another one? How about you, Sylvia?
I'm good.
Okay. One thing I should iterate, and this is true of every art class we take, um, a lot of artists, when they do very intensely personal stuff, they will do things that are uncomfortable in any other setting. And in an art setting, we are asked to set aside presuppositions and engage creative elements of our mind that we normally don't necessarily access so thoroughly. And so there might be uncomfortable themes. And I need to say that before we look at this. We are not dealing with things that are meant to be titillating or offensive. They are meant to be um, experiential and transformative. And so I need to say that. So please, nobody watching this get offended. And if you choose to be offended, please skip everything forward 5 minutes, 5 minutes and 10 seconds.
And that is reflected in her work and in the following slides. Let's begin. During her life, Ana Mendieta grounded herself in her work, using earthly elements and her own body to create performance pieces, and most famously, silhouettes. She has said, "My art is the way I reestablish the bonds that unite me to the universe. It is a return to the maternal source." After an uprooted upbringing, her work was about far more than the final photograph, and was certainly a healing and meditative creation process, her art being the vessel for that return she spoke of. Mendieta did not restrict her art to the landscape entirely, but utilized her body in performative art pieces as well. As a response to a sexual attack and murder of a fellow student, Mendieta performed Sweating Blood and created an untitled series now referred to as Rape Scene, both shot in her apartment. These are raw, intimate, and violently charged pieces that express the vulnerable state and effects of violence against women. Another work that addressed this tragic act of violence was Moffat Building. Bloody rags were placed outside an apartment building, and onlookers in the film initially address but ultimately ignore and walk past the worry. This was not the first nor the last time blood was used in her works. A film, Chicken Movie, Chicken Piece, is a horribly graphic creation of Mendieta, where she holds a decapitated chicken upside down while it is still twitching, its blood coating her naked skin. This was to parallel animal cruelty with violence towards women, at the cost of her own distress and discomfort, which is evident in the film. But blood was not exclusively violent for Mendieta. Another bloody piece was created at a Catholic monastery in Mexico to express blood as the missing link between the spiritual and the physical, between trauma and salvation, between reality and artistic creation. She considered blood to be an element of magic, a means for new stages of existence, a path to a purer state of being. This was also expressed in Blood and Feathers, pictured on the right. Mendieta herself performing as a rooster, which would be sacrificed in a spiritual ritual. Following these graphic series was when the landscape became increasingly important to Mendieta's work, the creation experience invoking renewal for the feminine archetype. She began Silhouette series in Mexico, which connected her to the pantheistic Santeria religion, and in turn connected her to her Cuban roots. Her religious beliefs were woven into her earthworks, which she left to be at the mercy of the elements or discovered by visitors, as she sought to achieve one universal energy which runs through everything, from insect to man, from man to specter, from specter to plant, from plant to galaxy. An additional medium Ana Mendieta utilized was fire. These works can only be experienced now through photographs, as the creation process was destructive and fleeting. The intensity of the human figure set ablaze holds a lot of emotion and anguish, but they can be seen as another expression of renewal. Until her untimely death, emotion was laced into every moment of Ana Mendieta's work, from beginning to end. She gave her entire self to each piece, literally embodying art. She was fiercely bold in her expression and in her means of making her statements heard loudly. While her bloodier works are hard to stomach, her vulnerability in creating them for the sake of other women is absolutely admirable. Knowing that these works, too, led to her connection with the earth and a more divine purpose is a truly inspiring tale.
I think Ana Mendieta is astonishing to me, and I think, I think that Kelly did a really great job of dealing with a lot of these things because when Anna was working, I don't know if you guys ever saw the Denzel Washington movie Man on Fire, or have seen and some of the violence in large cities in Mexico and the human trafficking that has been going on for the last several decades. Just a lot of the issues with uh, cartels and gangs. There is an awful lot of violence in the country that affects a lot of people, as well as violence, particularly against women. And these are subjects that are very difficult to deal with because we want to associate art with prettiness, and these things are not pretty. That's not, and Anna, that's not something that she was intended to do. She never did anything that was intended to gloss over the reality that she was sharing or honoring in other cases. And so what I'm amazed with was how well Kali did this and how sensitive she was to the work without turning it into um, anything traumatic for viewers. I love that trigger warning she gave at the beginning, but would you agree with me that there was nothing that was really nasty in that presentation at all? I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I don't think I'm glad she did the warning, but I don't think it was necessarily needed. But there may be more, like, other people who may be more sensitive to things. So I thought it was good that she did choose to include that, to be sensitive to others.
Yeah, very much so. What was your take on this presentation, Sylvia?
I liked it. I liked the artist that was chosen as well, just because I've never heard of her, and her artwork is just it's different from the kind that I've seen before, but I definitely appreciated like the warning just to kind of prepare for it. It wasn't what I was thinking was gonna be as like intensive as I thought from the warning, but like
Mhm.
it was definitely good to kind of know something could have like come up.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And a lot of her stuff is really difficult to take. And let's see. I may have to go get the door really quick. Can you guys hold on for just a second? Okay, sorry about that. I actually spent a little bit of time today um, hooking up the garage door opener to my car, and I just noticed my wife hanging out there, and I thought maybe I had screwed up the garage door opener for her, but no, luckily that was not the case. Anyway, yeah, and one of the things I really appreciate about Kelly was that she described some of the other things that we didn't see that were a lot more graphic, so we weren't we didn't have to experience any of that if we don't want to. I did want to mention something about, she talks about Santeria. This was a big part for Ana Mendieta's work. Santeria is a religious tradition, a spiritual tradition that is a fusion of indigenous beliefs in the Americas with heavy influence of Catholicism, blended with a lot of Yoruba spirituality and mysticism from the slaves that were brought over from Africa. And this is, so it's a fusion of a lot of different kinds of ideas coming together. And it ties very, very closely with people's understandings of things like petroglyphs and ancient rock art and American shamanism. So it's really kind of interesting, because one of the things Kali pointed out was that Ana Mendieta's work was designed to be kind of represent a source of connection, a fusion of interests. And that's doing that through something like Santeria is intensely personal, but also is a good allegory for the whole intent of her work, which I think is brilliant as well. So yeah, I thought both of these were really nicely done. And let's see. Please do look at the go to the research page. Even if you're doing service learning, I would recommend go to the research page if you guys have access to it, and watch a couple of these, because I think they turned out really well. And I will also send a link to that playlist as well. I'll email a link to everybody. Okay, and I am. Okay, there we go. All right, sorry about that. I got a little bit sidetracked. I don't know if you guys heard the dog yelping in the background. Don't understand what she's going on, but I wanted to show a few of the ready-mades that people have done since the last time we got together. Is that okay with you guys? And we can talk about them. Okay. And I really like how people have set these up. I think people have been doing a pretty good job with these. All right, so this I recognize this immediately. I remember watching my mom use one of these. It's a eyelash curler, and this person, the new title is Loops and Bridges, and this person even talks about the invention of what the original item was, and then by coming close in on it, giving it a title like this and showing it in a different way, I think it's a good way of recontextualizing what this is. And it feels to me almost like it was painted as well. I don't know. Maybe that is the actual color. And I like the kind of irony of turning this into almost a playful structure rather than an implement of beautification. I think that is nicely done. What do you guys think about this one?
I like that she turned it like that, because it really does look like some of the new playground structures that they're putting. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like that in a few years. Like, some of the parks that they're making now are so weirdly shaped, but obviously it's like good for kids to climb on. So I like that she was able to see that kind of playful shape in like an everyday object like that.
Yes, excellent. Very good observation. How about you, Sylvia?
Yeah, I really liked this one. I think I commented on this one as well. Um, but I just thought it was cool, the perspective difference, because I mean, whenever you look at an eyelash curler, you kind of hold it with your finger in like the loop area. But to
Right.
look at it from that side angle it's a different perspective. And I thought it was really interesting and very clever.
All right. Excellent. Very good. All right. Now this one, I think this is kind of a fun thing. And I kind of like what this person did, their take on it. It appears to be a balloon with scotch tape on it, seen in a mirror. And the person talks about it being a latex balloon that's the last surviving balloon from a family party. And the title, I think, is French, and I believe it's pronounced Demade. I don't know. Hopefully, I'm sure we'll talk about that. When putting this, I think it's interesting because the photograph feels more like a Man Ray early 20th century surreal photo rather than an art documentation photo, which a lot of us are doing with this assignment. So I think that's a really interesting take, where we see the reflection of the balloon, we see the reflection of the door, things are at different angles, and it becomes an interesting image by itself. And we can see it has hair and disheveled tape stuck to it. And the title I've bestowed upon the piece is Demade, which I do not know what that means. But I mean, anytime you can use a title that has these little elocution marks in it, I think whenever you can use a highbrow title in something, it always makes your work seem more elegant. So that's good too. And Kaylin talks about um, how it's elevated to artwork because of the conceptual space that the photography takes place within. And I love the different things that she talks about in this paragraph too. I think it's really fascinating. What do you guys think about this?
I'm actually typing my critique on this. So stay tuned and everybody can watch my peer critique to see what I think about it. But
All right, great.
I mean, overall, she was in my photography class earlier this semester, and she always did a great job at like having a different eye for things. So I always enjoy seeing what she has done. So yeah.
All right, wonderful. How about you, Sylvia?
I like how it has that mirror behind the balloon instead of like having the like a blank background or like everything in the photo is all the same color, or like to try to have it all the same color so that the main focus is just like the object. I really like how there's that mirror in the background to show like it, you see the object, but then the mirror reflects it, and so it like really showcases it from two different angles.
Yeah, excellent. Great. All right. Yeah, I agree. It gives it a very different perspective. Yeah, nicely done. Now here's one by Gracie, and I really enjoy this too because it has that kind of the humor that you see a lot in surrealist work, which is kind of fun. So the new title is Eternal Guardian, and it is a plushie. It talks about the game design history of this particular plushie. And I'm reading this as well. And talks about how it's transformed into an art piece by changing the context where it stands upright. And I think that this is interesting because it's always fascinating to me when somebody does this, where they take a toy and try to make it look more serious, or give it a different context like this. And I think that this is going in a really good direction, and it's very well written. The only thing that I would say to this person is, this would look, I think, a little bit better if it was in, like, on a pedestal. If they could find like a pedestal to put it on and take a photo from a point down to the side looking up, because that would really emphasize the almost monumental voice that is ironically being given to this plushie. But I think that is a really fun take on the idea. Elevating a toy from a video game into almost a monument. Stuff like that, I think, is great to do. And here's one. Let's see what this is. A paintbrush. Echoes of creativity. Nicely done. And this person is giving it new context by the way it's standing and being photographed. I think that there's a lot of really good stuff going on in this as well. I think that this might also be interesting, photographed on a pedestal or something. Kind of like, if you guys remember, In Advance of the Broken Arm, which is the ready-made Marcel Duchamp did of a snow shovel, where it was something like this, where it's just the snow shovel on a stand, just standing up upright. I think that might be really interesting. I think that's fascinating. I love the fact that this is upright instead of bristled down like we're used to working with brushes. And I think a lot of the recontextualization is articulated pretty well in the write-up. I think that's good. Okay, this is called Digital Lifeline, and it's a mouse, wireless. It looks like a wireless mouse put on something. I'm liking this. I think it's working pretty well. The only thing that I think would be different about it that I would suggest is resubmitting this with a crop so that we miss right down here and we miss this right there. The reason I'm saying that is that I love the fact that this is put on a pedestal with a draped pedestal. I think that's great. But I think that the little shadow here, the little shadow there, and this right here kind of detract from that. So I would recommend this person crop this right where my mouse is, crop it across the bottom right here, and crop it down right there. So we miss this triangle shadow, and that. And then I think that this would be really, really nicely done. It would make it very dramatic, and do a nice job of recontextualizing this as an art piece. I think that would be excellent. And we looked at this last week. And we looked at that one last week. So I think that these are looking really, I think what people are doing, I think people are getting the hang and understanding of what's going on. I think that's terrific. As you guys were going through the exercise with the conceptual art stuff, wrapping and things like that, what are some of the things that you're noticing that make these this module different than the other modules you were working on?
I feel like we were able to put more feeling into these pieces because they needed to be concepts, not necessarily um I don't know what the word I'm trying to say. Like we had to title the piece, we had to take something and like change it, not just, you know, glue things together to make a structure or glue paper together to, you know, put color things together. Like there had to be actual thought and feeling behind like the ready-mades. Like it wasn't just like, oh, take a picture. It was okay, take this and elevate it to another level and then name it something.
Right. I think that is a really solid observation. That's excellent. It really forces you to think about the why behind something being a piece of art. You know, how can it possibly be a work of art? And it's interesting to me. Every once in a while, most of the time, you don't hear about it very often anymore, which is really good. But I have some friends who are professional photographers, and they still get things like, well, art, photography isn't real art. That's fascinating to me, especially with the photographers that are going out with black and white with the intent of capturing something in black and white, where they're not manipulating the image with filters or anything like that. It's just straightforward black and white photography. What's astonishing to me is how much the person has to communicate with a really narrow, parsed down toolbox. If we're making a painting, if we're making a sculpture, we have control over the elements we're picking and how we put the elements together, what materials we're using to change the shape of those elements and how they relate to each other. If you're doing black and white SLR photography, you have a very limited toolbox, and basically what the person is seeing is your own personal connection with aesthetics. I mean, there's not much else that they can deal with. And Whitley, what you're talking about, I think, is that same kind of thing. You're forcing yourself to try to communicate as much as possible your artistic intent with an object that somebody else used. And you don't have an expansive toolbox to work with. And for some people, this becomes uh, really invigorating because they are reconnecting with those elements that got them excited about art. They're being forced to really closely examine the why, the intent behind everything. I don't think I told you guys this. I may have a couple weeks ago, but I used to do this module as a conceptual project. People would have to get together in a team of about 4 or 5 folks, and you had to put together a conceptual exhibit, essentially, a conceptual happening. You had to find a place on campus. You had to get all the right permissions. You had to do all this other stuff. And that was really interesting. You also had to let people in the class know so that they could go and see the exhibit. There were a couple different iterations of that, and one of them, the person had taken photos of their exhibit that they had done at home and brought the photos for the class to see. They thought at the beginning that conceptual art was a massive joke. They didn't understand how it could possibly be artistic. And I told her, I don't really care. I'm not a conceptual art evangelist in that, I get extra credit points for committing you to a new way of life, with the salvation that can only happen through conceptual art. But I told her, if you think that this is ridiculous, that's fine, but take it seriously. Take the assignment seriously anyway. And so what she did was she set herself a budget of like $10, bought as many little tchotchkes and odds and ends as she could from a DI for $10. She got a black plastic banquet tablecloth and borrowed a couple long tables for one of the neighbors. So over Super Bowl weekend, what she did was set up an exhibit space. She also uh, contacted several people and had them give her highbrow um, titles for work. You know, if they were excited about going to a really highbrow museum, what were some of the titles that they could expect to see? And so I gave her like 3 or 4 titles. She got several titles from other people. And what she did was put these objects that she had bought at random on in a line on these banquet tables that she covered with this black cloth. And then she pulled out the titles at random from a hat and put them in front of these things. So everything was randomized. And then she lit it like it was a professional exhibit. And during the halftime show, she had the people that came to their Super Bowl party go downstairs and look at this exhibit. You know, and she said, "Yeah, this is for a class project. I just need your candid reactions to it." And she had some people that had no idea what it was supposed to be, and they said, "Yeah, so it's got to be real art because I don't understand it. I can't understand art." One of her daughters was going through the art program at UVU as well, and her daughter was ecstatic because in her mind, her mom finally got what art was about. And it was interesting because she said that her conceptual art piece was putting this whole thing together, a randomized object with randomized titles, and then sharing people's reactions to it, you know, as if it were a real art exhibit. And she said that it was absolutely fascinating because she had one person who talked about the art exhibit was a perfect example of the kind of turmoil going on in the divisive political debates that were rampant throughout the country. Another person spoke about it in other terms, but she said that each person that spoke about the art exhibit and their reaction to it, she said it felt more like it was a venue for them to just vent what they were feeling themselves, or the people put a lot more meaning into it than she ever intended. And she said that it was fascinating to her. It completely changed her perspective on conceptual art because she realized then that conceptual artists do deal with thoughts. You know, they allow people a format to express themselves and kind of remove themselves from the consequences of the expression, where they can blame the art for how they feel. And she thought it was just a really fascinating experience. So we don't do that anymore, but we're dealing with wrapped objects that you talk about, and then the ready-made objects that you talk about. And it's really fascinating to me to see just the level of thought everybody's going into as they're addressing this. And I just think it's really fascinating. Anyway, so do you guys have any questions about different things? I know that I did not alter or change the due dates on this stuff, but I want people to know, keep moving forward with conceptual art, the wrapping stuff. Try to get that turned in before next class period. Try to get that turned in this weekend, and so we can talk about it more. And again, if there is stuff that's turned in, and I make comments about it that there needs to be some changes and stuff like that, you can make the changes and return it in. Or if you felt that what you did was completely justified, let me know why you feel that way, so I can revisit the grade. And I with the technical issues that I was having last week, I have not finished catching up on the grading from last week. I will try to get that done by tomorrow afternoon, so everybody knows where they're at. But do you guys have any questions or observations about the different kinds of things that we looked at this week? How about you, Sylvia? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right, great. Well, I am looking forward to spending a quality afternoon tomorrow with the tech support dudes and dudettes and whoever else can help with tech support. But so hopefully by the weekend I'll get all that sorted out. And as soon as we get off this call, I will email people too. I'm having some struggles trying to find the files so I can get it up on YouTube right away. And that may not happen until tomorrow as well. But please continue going forward. Realize the due dates are there to help people move forward, not to provide an opportunity to ding anybody extra points. But whoever does get the peer and self-critiques done within the next 2 weeks, you will get extra credit. Then after that, it will go back to regular points. And even though the PowerPoint is only for the people that are choosing the artist research option rather than service learning, the peer and self-critiques are for everybody in the class. I wanted to remind people about that as well. All right. In the meantime, I hope you guys have an absolutely wonderful week and weekend. Stay safe, stay well, and always keep your eyes open before you eat anything. This is camping season. More people make themselves sick not knowing what they're eating while they're camping and doing barbecues than any other time of the year, other than when family is visiting over Christmas and Thanksgiving. So be careful what you're eating out there, and pay attention. As you know, as you are going through the holiday and vacation season, pay attention to what's going on. An ounce of paying attention is worth a couple days in the hospital, for sure. Absolutely. So just stay safe. All right, guys. I will see you next week and weekend.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. All right. We'll see you guys later.
All right.
Bye.